Off we go. Okay, yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Norman, and I am excited to be with you tonight. So dogs are a big part of my life. And so I have a funny story about one time when I went. Now I'm talking to you guys over the computer. So I'm right here in my own house. This is what I call my art room, which is why it's so colorful and weird looking. But sometimes I get in my car and I drive, or I get on a plane and I fly to go to see schools. Like next spring, I'm going to some schools in Nevada, and then I'm going to some schools in what's the other one? Upstate New York. But New Jersey is just about close enough that it's not a terribly long drive. So I was visiting a school in New Jersey a couple of years ago. Well, now a couple of years ago, 2020, so probably 4 years ago. I was visiting a school in New Jersey. And so because it was a long drive, I drove up the night before, stayed at a hotel, and then was going to get in my car and go to the school the next morning. And so I left the hotel, bringing my bags, going to put them in my car. And there's this dog in the parking lot. And I looked around and he didn't seem to belong to anybody, this dog. And I could tell this was not a scary or a dangerous dog or anything like that. And it was kind of a very cold day. So I was kind of worried about him. And you know, the main reason I was worried for him, and that is because if you've ever stayed at a hotel, people that are staying at hotels are driving very far. And so they have gotten on a super highway, and then they just get off the highway and they stay at the hotel. There are big super highways very near the hotels, right? And so I look at this dog and I look over just, like 100 yards away, there's a super highway. And are cars going fast on a super highway, or are they going slow? Zoom, zoom, right? They are going fast. And do we want a dog all by himself anywhere near a super highway? No. So I was very worried about him. So at first I thought, well, okay, at least when I go to the school, maybe I can take a picture of him and I can go to the school and maybe somebody could put him on Facebook or something. So we can show you a picture of what this dog looked like. Very friendly dog, not a scary dog at all. So let's take a look at that picture of this cute dog that wanted to be my friend that day at the hotel. There he is. Look at those eyes. Doesn't it kind of look like he has makeup around his eyes? So this is not a scary dog, right? This is a sweet, friendly dog. And it was very cold. So I thought, well, let me look at my car and maybe I could give him something to eat, because I had some like bread in my car. But he didn't want the bread. In fact, have you ever met a dog that like really wants to meet you and is really friendly? What do? They're like wiggling, and their shoulders are wiggling, and their bottoms are wiggling, and their tails are wiggling. So he's very wiggly and very friendly. And so, but it was getting on time, same way like tonight, 6 o'clock, we were going to start. I needed to get to the school. So I thought, you know what? I opened my car door, and what do you think that dog did? He jumped right in my car. In fact, he jumped in the front seat because that's the door I opened, but then he jumped right into the back seat. Like he's like, oh no, I always ride in the back. And so, but here's the sweet thing. I'll show you what he was doing all the way to the school. He was sitting behind me and he was like this on my shoulder the whole time while I'm driving. This sweet, sweet dog was on my shoulder the whole way. I call the school. By the time I get there, they have called animal control. And so that you won't worry about the dog as we go to talk about other things, this was like a Friday. I got home on Saturday. I found the local animal shelter and called them to see what had happened, because when I got to the school, they had called animal control and they came to get him while I was in talking to the kids, just like I'm talking to you. And happy ending is that his family did find him. They had called around to the local animal shelters and they did come and get him. So that's the happy story, that he was perfectly safe. The family probably wondered how he'd gotten so far away, because he got
right.
But so that's the happy ending. But while I was in there talking to the kids, we started talking about, where do authors get their ideas? We know sometimes authors get their ideas from things like that, something that happens to them, and then they can go on and they can either tell the exactly true story of what happened, or they can kind of use it as an idea for a story. So this school was named Woodside Elementary School. And so we decided to call him Woody. Now, I don't know what his real family called him. When they came to pick him up, I'm sure they didn't call him Woody, but that's what we named him. And we started to think about other adventures that Woody could have that we could write books about. So like, for instance, maybe Woody could go on some sort of adventure. Maybe he could go with on a hike with somebody and see all kinds of amazing things, right? Or maybe he could go to school. He could go in and go to school with those kids, right? So does anybody have any ideas? I guess we're either going to do it in chat, or maybe if you can unmute yourself. And who has some ideas of things that Woody could do that would be good adventures that we could write books and stories about? Who can think of something Woody could do? Help somebody, or be a seeing eye dog. Look at with those big eyes, he'd be a great seeing eye dog.
All right, I'm going to call on Amelia first. So Amelia.
I think Woody could like become an artist someday and make an art gallery.
Oh yes.
Oh wow.
An artist, he could paint a picture like that, right? I love
that.
Thank
you. Okay, we got a few others. I'm going to call on Aleem now. Aleem, what do you think Woody should do?
Adventures with Woody in the woods.
Ooh, in the
Yeah,
woods.
either he could get lost in the woods, or he could make friends in the woods. Yes.
Awesome. Let's see. And Serenity, how about you?
Woody can put some glasses on and go to school.
Oh, with glasses.
And learn to read, right?
I love that. Ooh, there's a soldier dog idea. Or a Navy or a SWAT dog. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Did you remember us talking about the Navy? Oh, that would tie into Mrs. Norman very well.
We have Jonathan and Abner. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Jonathan or Abner, but we can ask them which one. What do you guys think? Your adventure for Woody.
What I think is maybe Woody could have an adventure of him being a Navy SWAT. And it's called Special Tactics.
Wow.
Ooh, cool.
And
Oh, you even have a name.
And maybe it could be a Navy SEAL, a American Ally dog, like a service soldier dog, and maybe a police dog.
Oh, wow.
Lots of ideas. Great.
Well, then, do we have any more? Because if not, we'll jump in with something we could actually start to write about Woody. I have heard about dogs that go out on boats and help the marine scientists find whales, so they can learn about the whale behavior and whether they live in families or whatever. So, and there are real dogs that do this. Of course, our Woody went back with his family, but we're going to make up stories about Woody having an adventure. And they really do. They wear life vests, so that green vest would help him float if he fell in the water. And they even wear those goggles to keep the salt water out of their eyes, so that so they look very cool. They have this mask that they wear while they're out there on the boat. So now, when we write a story, one of the first things we need to figure out is the setting of the story, which means where does the story take place? Well, we can see if we're going to write about Woody on a boat in the ocean, that's our setting. But part of the setting might also be the weather or the time of year. So let's see, we need to decide whether it's going to be cold where Woody is looking. Maybe he's in the North Atlantic looking for whales, or maybe it's warm and he's in the Gulf of Mexico looking for whales. So we need to decide that in our setting if we're going to write the story later on. So, all right, let's decide. Let's decide he's up in around Massachusetts or Maine, where it's cold in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean. So if I wrote my first sentence, one blank morning, Woody dashed out onto the boat. So we need to describe this morning. Who can come up with some words? Those would be adjectives that would describe the sort of morning that Woody is experiencing as he goes out onto the boat in this cold ocean environment. Who can think of a good word for that?
It looks like we have chilly. Kat suggested chilly.
Chilly. Okay. I like that. Chilly. I bet it is chilly, you know, like off the coast of Maine or Massachusetts or something. So, okay. So one chilly morning, Woody dashed out onto the boat. Now there's a motor on the boat as they begin to go out. Who can think of the sort of sounds that a motor might make on a boat? There's a big word for that. It's called onomatopoeia, which means
I love it.
I know, don't you love that word? I can never spell that word because it has like 700 vowels in that word. But
We have
it's
two
like
people.
words like or zoom or vroom or rawr. Who can come up with a word of the kind of sound? Ooh, what is that? Brr.
We have two hands raised.
I think it could be Zoom.
Zoomed. I like that. Okay. So the motor zoomed and the boat splashed across the water. How about that? So the boat splashed, which is kind of an onomatopoeia word, right? Because we can sort of hear the sound of splashing, right? So whenever I write a story, I like to think about the reader's five senses. I like to describe things they can hear, things they can smell, things they can even touch and taste, right? So that's what we're going for when we write that first sentence. Okay. Woody used his eyes to what? What would he have used his eyes to do? See, see, somebody wrote see. Okay, I like that. So what, because remember, he's got a job, right? It's his job to help the marine biologists find these whales. So he used his eyes to see. Woody could, and I missed one. And Woody used his nose to, what did he use his nose for?
Oh, looks like Kate is raising her hand.
I love
Sniff.
Sniff. I like that. And also Serenity wrote sniff the air. So we've got the whole phrase there. Excellent.
Ooh.
And I like that word scan.
What's that?
Scan means to see also. Woody used his eyes to scan the ocean.
Scan. Oh, yeah. Sniff the air and scan the horizon's kind of a big word. And scan the skies. No, he's scanning the water. The ocean. How about the ocean? Woody could even taste the salty ocean spray with his what?
Yes, you're right. His mouth.
Yeah, with his mouth and his
Or
tongue, right?
tongue. I love it.
So Woody watched and watched. Now, you know what I like about that sentence? Because the word Woody starts with a what? I can see it in front of my black shirt here. A W, right? And the word watched starts with a W. So Woody watched and watched. So I love to use words that sound like that. That's called alliteration. Suddenly, Woody saw something in the water. You can look at the picture and what do you think Woody saw in the water? Does anybody know what that particular kind of whale is? There's a special name. They actually have two names. One name's kind of scary.
Orca.
Did somebody say orca?
Yeah.
It was me.
Yes. An orca
Awesome.
whale. An orca whale. Isn't that cool? I love that. There's something kind of musical about that word. So it was an orca whale. Now, you know what? When I turn the page, you know what I have written down? Nothing. Because now we're going to take, what do we have, about 5 or 6 minutes? That we are each going to take some time on our own and write, or even you can just think about the story if you want to think about it, and maybe we can talk about it later. After 5 to 7 minutes, we're going to each of us take about 5 to 7 minutes to write our own story about what happens now that Woody has met that whale. What's the next thing that happens in our story? because
Yeah.
that was the beginning of the story, right? Where he got in the boat and he met the whale. Now we're going to get to the middle of the story of the things that happen when he meets the whale.